Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Small Yard, Big Garden. We've got some cool things happening in the yard, and I'm grateful because we actually had a freeze come through the past couple of nights. But it seems that everything mostly fared well. So let's take a look at what's going on in the garden. Look at how lovely that's filling in. The Swiss chard is growing in. However, it seems the squirrel has made its way back out. Okay, we have some lovely figs leafing out, and look at what we have here. Let me see if I can get it in range. There we go. Two little figs. It's not going to zoom. There it is. Two beautiful little figs growing in. So we have those coming out. We have the anemone. It's not an anemone. It's not the sea creature. But yeah, I did put celery in here. I saw some sprouts coming out, but I don't think they're gonna take. But that's okay. I like this bed for my eggplants, and the eggplants are growing really well in the greenhouse. What is coming out are all the peas. So lots and lots of peas. So I'm hopeful for the pea season. The blueberry is starting to branch out. I would like to get this in the ground. Potatoes are coming up. Okay. Look at this. See those little blossoms on there? That's the goji berry. It is blooming and looking wonderful. The Swiss chard in here is also doing really, really well. All of a sudden the camera got really, really dark. Let's see here. We have still the cauliflower coming in, doing okay. The lettuce has taken a hit from the squirrel. I mean, look at this. Okay, which is why I plant extra. I've been coming through and pulling all these little sunflower seeds that are popping out. I don't want sunflowers in the middle of this bed this year. Kale is still doing well. Okay, this fig, I'm not sure. I want to say it's done for, but then look what happens, right? There's a little green bud right there and up here. So there might be some hope yet on that. We'll see what stalks die off, trim them up, what stalks keep going, and I'll just keep watering it. More sunflowers coming in. I'm going to thin these out. I don't want so many right here either. The lemon balm, not so much. It's pretty dry, but I'm wondering if it's kind of like the hibiscus, which always dies back to stem, and then it just sprouts back out. Radishes are doing good. I want to say this might be a chrysanthemum, but I do have radishes. I should probably come in and thin this. The box is a little dry. The mullein is doing really well. Yeah, I think I have some flowers coming in here, which is okay. This is kind of like my let's see what happens bin, which is why I put the radishes in there also. The fennel is looking beautiful. Okay, roses. You can see I'm crunching around on wood chips. Like I said, I just throw wood chips down and compost down. The honeysuckle is taking off. This grapevine is starting to come in, and that grapevine has leafed. Okay. Now, thankfully, the flowers had already kind of died back, and what we have are the little, let's see, buds for the peach tree. If I can get that clear enough, there we go. I think it's still kind of blurry. There we go. So we have the little buds for the peach tree. And this season it is loaded. So I may have to come in and thin some of them so we get really big peaches. I don't want to thin too many because we really love our peaches. But there are a lot on this tree. Oh good, the ladybugs are already out. This tree likes to get hit by aphids early in the season. So if the ladybugs are in, there's food, hopefully, and they're eating them. So, yep, look. Because see, this is part of frost damage, but then usually what happens, there they are, little aphids. Bad bugs. Coating the tree. I'm not sure if you can see this. Tons of little aphids in there. And that was due to the frost damage. They move right in. The ladybug's fast at work. So hopefully they will take care of that and get some of these leaves that got damaged by that frost and remedy that situation. Yep, there's several ladybugs on here. Look, there's another one. You see it moving around? So they are eating. They're going to town. Thank goodness for beneficial bugs. The raspberries are looking amazing. I actually cut a stalk thinking it was one of the dried dead stalks. And then all of a sudden the other two started leafing. I was like, darn, I should have left it. Lesson learned. Echinacea kind of wilted a little bit. I think it'll be all right though. I did try to put little covers over certain things when I knew it was going to get super cold. These are pretty hardy. Look at that. It's getting green under there too. Come in, trim some of this. Now this is living, but that's a new growth coming in, so that'll be great. And these beds are still waiting. Waiting. Okay, let's talk about soil really quick. And let's look over here. So this bed has a lot of grass coming in. It's a little frustrating because Bermuda just grows. That's what it does. It grows. But let's look at this soil because I don't have anything growing in here yet. In here, I have a mix of compost. I have soil down at the bottom here. Like deep down. See, it's still moist down here because all this compost keeps it. But look at this soil. Okay. Look at beautiful soil. It's nice and cool down there still. And I have bunny poop. I use bunny poop. I put it in here in the garden. It is cold. Okay, some fertilizers are hot, some fertilizers are cold. You have to really be careful on that. Bunny poop is cold, so you can put it directly, like I can just go gather it, dump it in the soil, and it is fine. Some people use different things for fertilizers, and I think the most surprising one, I'll be honest, is people have been saying they're using their own urine in the, like especially with the tomatoes, there's an acidity level that goes into the soil. I know, I can't jump on that board. I can't jump on board on that. Yeah, no, but I mean, people do it. So, and they swear by it, right? We find these practices, we swear by them. We're in New Mexico. So the soil here is generally, it's gonna vary. You're gonna have a lot of clay in some areas. You're gonna have a lot of sand in some areas. I'm up on the mesa, way out here, and the mesa is loaded with sand. It's sand dunes, known for dune buggies that roll through the hills and, do all kinds of crazy driving up there. So it's not known for rich organic soil. And honestly, I think when I moved here in 2002, I worked really hard at amending this ground so many times, so many times. It was the worst. Like from bringing in horse manure and letting it rest through the year, bringing in cow manure and letting it rest through the year, trying to put lawn in, trying to put bags of compost. You can never have enough compost, really. But bags of compost, so many different things. And then I would do raised beds. And what happens, you can do raised beds. You put your soil in. The plants, Alice, stop it. The plants, right, go into the soil. They eat up all the nutrients. And you have to talk about fertilizer. Because there's, Alice, no more. Go inside. She always does this when I'm filming. It's like a thing. I don't know. Now, go inside. So, we have to talk about fertilizer. And there's telltale signs that happen on plants that lead to indications, whether you have yellowing or you have the underside of your leaves turning purple. Some plants are purple underneath, I'm not going to lie. But sometimes you have leaves underneath turning purple, telling you have to, each one, and let me tell you, you can post on a social site and say, what's wrong with my plant? And you'll get about 100 different answers. You really got to look at what's happening in the soil. Is it really dry? Is it not holding water? Is it fruiting? If it's not fruiting, potassium is an issue. If the leaves are yellowing, it's a nitrogen issue but I could say that and somebody will come along, it's not a nitrogen issue. You might be overwatering. There's so many different things, right? So it really is about getting to know your soil. Yellow leaves usually are a good indication that your nitrogen's low. If you look at this, these are bright leafy green, right? I don't have any yellowing issues other than like what happened with the frost. There's a lot of nitrogen in this soil. Balancing that out is also key because you can have a whole lot of nitrogen. Let me tell you, you can have tons and tons of nitrogen, which I actually learned, trial and error, right? I learned with this bed, I had too much nitrogen in it. And what happened was I had planted okra and I barely got any okra. And okra are pretty prolific. And I was like, oh, but I had beautiful, like the okra, we're talking about this bed here, okra went for days, up. So, yeah, the okra went for days, but there was zero okra on the okra. Great nitrogen, low potassium, okay? Magnesium's also good for your soil. You can throw Epsom salt in, but just make sure not to get it on the roots. You can put it around your plants. Always, when you're starting in new soil, untouched soil, start with good soil. Get a bag of good soil. Don't just dump it into your soil unless you know you're living off by the Rio Grande. You have rich soil. My grandfather used to take buckets of the Rio Grande soil from the river, and he would throw seeds in it and grow. That's how I got this apple tree. He would grow seeds in buckets in Rio Grande soil, Rio Grande River soil. So the apricot tree also, I got that the same way. He would just stick it in the soil and grow it because he knew that soil was really, really rich. Now, why is that soil so rich down there, right? When a plant, at the end of the season, leaves turn brown. I just lost my glasses. I can't wear them when I'm doing this because I can't see my screen. So I just lost my glasses. But, okay, sorry about the movement. So we're looking at the tree. The leaves dry off, right? Out of habit, and it's always like, clean your yard, clean your yard. We get into this weird habit of clean your yard, right? So all these leaves fall, we rake them up, we put them in a lawn bag, throw them in the garbage. Okay. Nature doesn't do that. Nature does not do that. You can look up Charles Dowding, I always say his name wrong. He has the back to Eden method of growing, but there's a lot of different methods like the hugelkultur, I want to say. They start with branches underneath in the beds, and then they put the soil on top. They know what that's doing from underneath because layers and layers of earth pile up, right, on natural matter. And then that's what's happening at the river. That's what's happening in the mountains. And then you have a lot of moisture coming in, things like that. All this compost holds and retains that moisture. You don't have to water as often. Because if you live on the west side, the soil dries up in a day. Like, you can water it, and the next day it's like, I'm not watering enough. I guess I'm not. And then you overwater because it's hard to gauge this soil. The soil is really bad. So starting off with good fresh soil is good, but if you don't have the option, right, of going and buying bags of soil, because let's be honest, they're like, I don't even know how much they are now. I haven't bought a bag of soil yet this year, but usually they're about $7, right? $7-8. If you go for like frog brand soil, organic soils, you're looking at, I think it was like $9-10 for a bag of soil. Last season, I'm sure the prices are up this year, but and I don't use Miracle-Gro. I don't use Miracle-Gro soil. I don't. The bags are small anyway. Who wants that? I use Kellogg's Organics, but you put that soil in. And if you don't have that option, the next best thing that you're going to have is what's already on your property. Leaves, dried leaves, things, plants, foods, materials, and start yourself a compost bin. Start yourself a compost bin. Make sure you stay on top of it, rotate it, make sure it's moist. It should always be moist, almost like you want your soil to be. And then start laying that on your soil. Let the leaves fall where they are. Let the leaves fall and decay, because all of that feeds the soil down below. And I always wondered too, and I found that method a couple of years ago, and I've been doing it ever since, but I always wondered a couple of years ago, like I would put a raised bed out here and I'd fill it with soil, and I thought things were going great until, of course, the next year when that soil was all used up. And yet this apple tree would drop leaves all through here, and I could plant things in this area and they would just grow. I never had to replenish the soil. I never had to do anything to the soil. Yet the soil in this area was getting richer and richer, because I wouldn't rake up my leaves. I'm bad about that. I'm like, it's just going back. It's soil. Let it go back to nature. So my method of thinking originally was right. And come to find out, it really is right, because that's feeding your soil down. It's also keeping things cool on top, but it is feeding nutrients down as everything breaks down. So really, it's about knowing what kind of soil you have. If you have a lot of clay in your soil, right, you need to bring in sand. Funny enough, you need to balance it out. That's like thick caliche. You got to break it up with like sand and get it moving and get it flowing so it's soft enough. It's still not going to be nutrient dense enough. You still need to go back to compost. Okay, compost is going to be your best friend. Once you have soil and you have good soil going, you need compost to maintain that soil. Putting it down, putting it on top. All this whole area here is compost. Mushroom compost in there. Also wood bark, like the wood chips. They have, I don't know, some people say chip drop. I've tried that here. I've even tried getting on lists for the people who trim trees to get drop-offs for wood chips. Yeah, never got a call, never got a drop-off, never. So what I ended up doing was I invested, I think it was like $150. I know we try to spend not as much, but let's be honest, we spend a lot on our gardens, especially when you want a successful garden. So I bought a wood chipper, and any branches I prune, any sunflower stalks that come down, that's what happens. I just run it through my wood chipper and I put it back in the garden. I just dump it back on the ground. So there's a lot of different methods. I don't use chemical fertilizers. I will use fish fertilizer from time to time, depending on what's happening. If I'm not seeing a lot of blossoms, I'll probably bring in fish fertilizer. If I'm not seeing lots of growth, I'll bring in rabbit poop. In the compost bins, chicken poop goes in there. Chicken poop goes into the compost bins. It's hot. You don't want to apply chicken poop ever directly to your garden. It has to go in compost bins. So if you have other farm animals, you have to look at some of the animals. I know alpaca is a cool, but I'm not sure about goat. Somebody could probably post down below on goat. But alpaca you can put directly into the garden. So you just got to check your animals and see. Do not put cow manure straight on you'll burn everything up. Do not put horse straight on, you'll burn everything up. I know we have a lot of access more to cow manure and horse manure just because where we are at. Do not put it directly into your garden. You can put it into your compost. And if you have a big yard and you can really knock out a good compost bin, do that. Can't say it enough. Bring in things like banana peels. Eat a lot of bananas. They're good for you anyway. And then put the bananas out in the garden. Okay, put the peels back out in the garden. Let them break up. Let them feed the garden. This is potassium. Okay. You can also soak banana peels in mason jars. Okay. And then water with that. But I don't find that feasible. I honestly don't find it feasible. Maybe if you're making a big batch tea, like a barrel tea or something, you can load it with a satchel, like a cheesecloth with banana peels, bunny poop, you know, plant matter, things like that, brown matter, coffee grounds. You can load it with all of that stuff, right? And then you make a compost tea. Worm castings are another great source. And then you make a tea, and you can water with that big old barrel of water, okay? A mason jar with a little bit of banana isn't going to water much. Not in this yard anyway. I don't know, unless you have just like a little small 1 container garden bed that you're trying to, then by all means you can get away with doing that. Okay, you make a pitcher of banana tea, put that down in the ground. But when you have this much, I mean, it's a small yard, but this is a lot growing already, and I haven't even put the plants in. I put some, but I haven't put a lot of the plants in. I'll probably start that next week, actually. So today is the 16th, no, 15th. Today is the 15th, so of April. And there's also some clever little rules out there, right, about when to plant. So 2 days ago, this was not blooming. Now look what's blooming, right? Lilac is blooming. It tells you can come plant certain things out here when the lilac starts blooming. It knows, nature knows. You can tell by, when the birds start chirping. That means next week is going to be my busy week. I got to get soil in here, got to get more compost, got to start putting stuff into the garden. The grass is starting to come out. Bermuda, it does that. I got to put more compost because this is going to be a bed that's going to raise for the trellises for gourds this year. And I have eggplant in the greenhouse. I have jalapenos in the greenhouse, and I have tons of tomato plants in the greenhouse. I use a lot of tomatoes. It's kind of a thing. But and then I got to get some more compost coming in because the potatoes are growing. So I got to fill as they grow, or straw, something like that. I go out to what is it called? Oh gosh, my brain, I can't think of it right now. It's out in Bosque Farms. Chakal Haystack, okay. And probably buy a bale of straw and use it in there. I don't use it in my chickens. I use wood chips in my chickens because they're composting. And then that compost goes in there, and then it comes back out here as soon as it smells like soil. And it's beneficial for the garden. So I've been throwing a lot more scraps in with the chickens also because I'll let them do the composting and then put the soil in there. There's also a method where you can deep compost in a chicken coop. I don't know. And it's already like kind of doing the composting there because the chickens turn the soil all the time. So there's so many different methods. You got to find what works for you. This is just a small portion, and this is just what I do in my New Mexico soil. So I hope everybody is having a lovely start to the season. If it's getting off rough, try again. Don't ever give up. I see people say that all the time. I just give up. All I do is kill the plants. Look at your soil. Start learning, researching. Nothing is ever dead on, Sometimes you have to adjust. Sometimes you have to adjust because the temperatures are too hot and you have to bring in shade cloths. But one of the main key things is getting your soil going, and all the other stuff, that soil will help you get through it. So he is not good fertilizer. He comes in and he's like, oh, where can I, do my business today? He drives me crazy because he sneaks in and he's the tiniest no matter what. I can close the gate, and he is also the cutest. But so don't give up. Try again. And if it gets later in the season and things fail, there's late growing season stuff. You just keep trying, keep learning. Every time you plant something, it's a learning experience, and grow with it. So much love, many blessings, and I'll see you next time. Bye.